On April 26, 2025, the University of Nebraska's Memorial Stadium, once a cathedral of college football, became the stage for a spectacle so disastrous it may have sealed the fate of the Cornhuskers' storied program. The Husker Games, a poorly conceived replacement for the traditional red-white spring game, were not merely a disappointment but a catastrophic failure that exposed the depths of mismanagement plaguing Nebraska football. Marketed as an innovative showcase of 7-on-7 competitions and skills drills, the event, also known as the Nebraska Games or Fall Sports Preview, delivered a chaotic, embarrassing mess that alienated fans, repelled recruits, and tarnished a legacy built over decades. With fewer than 10,000 attendees compared to the 60,000 who typically pack the stadium for the spring game, the Husker Games marked a precipitous fall for a program that once defined excellence. This was no mere misstep, it was a death knell, a culmination of 2 decades of poor leadership from coaches, athletic directors, and university officials, with head coach Matt Rhule's decisions serving as the final nail in the coffin. The Husker Games, or as they could aptly be called, the day Nebraska football died, have left the program in a state from which it may never recover. A tradition dismantled, the cancellation of the spring game. The decision to replace the red-white spring game with the Husker Games was a profound error, rooted in a misguided attempt to prioritize caution over tradition. In early 2025, Rhule announced the cancellation of the spring game, citing fears of player injuries and the risk of talent being poached through the transfer portal. These rationales were flimsy and insulting to a fan base that understands football's inherent risks. Injuries are a reality in any physical sport, whether in practice or public exhibitions, and shielding players from a spring game does little to mitigate this truth. The notion that a single scrimmage would expose players to significant scouting or poaching was equally absurd. In the modern era, players are already known quantities, tracked through game film, recruiting networks, and constant communication with rival programs. A spring game would not alter this dynamic, yet Rhule used it as a pretext to dismantle a cherished ritual that unites Nebraska's football community. The red-white game is more than an exhibition. It is a cultural cornerstone, a springtime celebration that draws families, alumni, and fans across generations to Memorial Stadium. With attendance often rivaling that of major programs, it underscores Nebraska's unique passion for football in a state where the sport is a way of life. Replacing this tradition with the Husker Games, a hodgepodge of skills contests, a women's flag football game, and other peripheral activities, was a grave miscalculation. The event structure, inspired by the NFL's Pro Bowl, was fundamentally at odds with Nebraska's football ethos, which craves the intensity of competitive play, not contrived spectacles. By prioritizing a sanitized, low-risk format, Rhule and the athletic department underestimated the emotional weight of the spring game, setting the stage for a debacle that would reverberate far beyond April 26. A bait-and-switch, the unadvertised scrimmage and missing 7-on-7 drills. The execution of the Husker Games was a masterclass in disorganization, epitomized by a last-minute decision to include a live scrimmage that went largely unadvertised. Just 9 days before the event, on April 17, Rhule reversed his earlier stance and announced a scrimmage for 3rd and 4th string players, a move that contradicted the cancellation of the spring game. This scrimmage, featuring walk-ons and roster hopefuls competing for spots on the new 105-man NCAA roster, was a genuine opportunity to showcase local talent and engage fans. Yet, inexplicably, it was not promoted. Promotional materials continued to emphasize 7-on-7 drills and skills competitions, leaving fans unaware that real football, complete with tackling and full gear, would be played in Memorial Stadium. This failure to communicate was a critical error, as Nebraska's loyal fan base would have rallied to support a scrimmage highlighting homegrown players fighting for their place on the team. Instead, the lack of promotion contributed to a paltry attendance, a stark rebuke to the athletic department's priorities. Compounding the confusion was the cancellation of the 7-on-7 drills, which had been heavily marketed as the event's centerpiece. These drills, billed as a modern pass-heavy showcase, were meant to highlight offensive skill and entertain fans with dynamic plays. Their absence was a baffling betrayal, leaving attendees who expected a lively display of athleticism with nothing but frustration. The bait-and-switch, advertising one format and delivering another, demonstrated a profound lack of respect for fans who invested time and money to attend. The scrimmage, while a welcome surprise for those present, was limited in scope, excluding starters and most second-string players. A more thoughtful approach could have balanced fan expectations with Rhule's concerns. Starters could have participated in limited, low-contact series in half-pads, followed by a full scrimmage for reserves. Such a structure would have preserved the spring game's competitive spirit while showcasing the roster's depth. Instead, the athletic department's failure to adapt or communicate effectively squandered a chance to celebrate Nebraska's football heritage, leaving fans feeling deceived and disregarded. Skills competitions. A parade of embarrassment. The skills competitions, intended to highlight player talent and engage the crowd, were a catastrophic failure, exposing a roster unprepared and a coaching staff out of touch. Poorly designed and inadequately rehearsed, these contests set players up for public humiliation rather than success, raising serious questions about the program's readiness and depth. The quarterback skills competition was a disaster, with one notable exception: Rhule. The sophomore quarterback delivered the event's only highlight, tossing a football 45 yards into a basketball hoop with pinpoint accuracy, a display of arm talent that underscored his status as the program's cornerstone. Beyond Rhule, however, the competition was a debacle. Other quarterbacks struggled to hit moving targets, tackling dummies, or crossbars at distances of 30 to 50 yards. Their throws were consistently short, off-target, or underpowered, revealing a troubling lack of arm strength and precision in the quarterback room. The targets should have been placed closer, 15 to 20 yards, to ensure competitive success and avoid embarrassment. The coaching staff's failure to anticipate these struggles or adjust the setup was a glaring oversight, leaving fans questioning the program's future at its most critical position. The bench press competition was equally disheartening, exposing deficiencies in player strength that are unacceptable for a Big Ten program. Some players struggled to lift 225 pounds more than a few times, a shocking display for Division I athletes, particularly linemen, who should be capable of 10 to 20 reps by their junior year. The inclusion of coaches in the event was a misguided attempt at engagement, but the real outrage came from Rhule's ostentatious pledge of $5,000 per bench press rep to a youth mentoring program. This stunt, resulting in over $100,000 pledged in a single afternoon, was less a charitable act than a tone-deaf display of wealth from a coach earning nearly $10 million annually. In a state where many residents earn less than $100,000 a year, Rhule's casual disbursement of such sums felt like a mockery of Nebraska's working-class values. The mentoring program, once well-intentioned, has faced criticism for its recent direction, further undermining the gesture's sincerity. Other competitions were similarly disastrous. The kicking and punting contests saw shanks and misses, with targets placed too far for most players to succeed. Kickers struggled to make field goals, and punters failed to land balls in designated areas, requiring an alumnus to step in and salvage the display. The strongman challenge, involving tractor pulls over 40 yards, left participants exhausted and ineffective when a shorter distance would have sufficed. The media challenge, where local reporters caught footballs from a machine, revealed a troubling collusion between the athletic department and a compliant press, which later produced glowing recaps that ignored the event's flaws. The John Cook roping roundup, led by the volleyball coach, was an absurd spectacle, with players clumsily attempting to lasso fake cows in a stunt that had no place in a football event. The wing-eating contest, a promotional gimmick for a corporate sponsor, was a grotesque display of former players and coaches failing to eat 100 wings in 3 minutes, leaving sauce and debris strewn across tables in a fittingly chaotic end to the day. The receiver skills competition, where players tried to catch lobs and land on padded mats, was cancelled mid-event after repeated drops and missed landings, encapsulating the event's incompetence. Recruiting, a catastrophe with lasting consequences. The Husker Games were a recruiting disaster, alienating high school prospects and cementing Nebraska's reputation as a program in decline. Recruits in attendance appeared lost, confused, and neglected, wandering aimlessly without meaningful engagement from coaches or staff. The lack of organization, from abrasive hosts herding prospects to cramped, subpar seating in the stands, signaled that recruiting was an afterthought. Forcing these young athletes to watch a women's flag football game and a series of failed skills contests, rather than a competitive spring game, was a profound miscalculation. Top-tier prospects, who have options at programs with vibrant spring games and passionate fanbases, saw nothing to inspire confidence in Nebraska's direction. The event's chaos and lack of competitive football sent a clear message: this is not a serious program. No high-caliber recruits are likely to commit to Nebraska after this debacle, and the program's ability to attract even mid-tier talent is now in jeopardy. Nebraska's recruiting challenges are already significant, given its remote location, harsh winters, and competition from programs in more appealing climates. The Husker Games added a new and insurmountable barrier: embarrassment. Prospects who witnessed the event or heard of its failures will not entertain the idea of playing for a program that subjects its players to such public humiliation. The promise of scholarships and endorsement deals is not enough when the program's reputation is one of disorganization and incompetence. Recruits want to play for winning teams, for coaches who inspire confidence, and for programs that respect their craft. The Husker Games demonstrated that Nebraska offers none of these, ensuring that the program's talent pipeline will dry up, leaving it unable to compete in the Big Ten or beyond. A program unpoachable, but at what cost? Ironically, the Husker Games may have achieved one unintended outcome, making Nebraska's players unpoachable. The abysmal performances in the skills competitions and the disorganized scrimmage likely convinced rival coaches that Nebraska's roster lacks talent worth pursuing. No opposing program will look at the players who struggle to hit targets, lift weights, or complete basic tasks and see potential transfers. However, this is a hollow victory, achieved at the cost of the program's prestige and future viability. By showcasing incompetence, Nebraska has deterred both recruits and rival programs, but it has also alienated its fanbase and undermined its own aspirations. The program's reputation as a destination for serious football players is in tatters, and the Husker Games have ensured that Nebraska is no longer a place where top talent wants to play, or even visit. A legacy of mismanagement. The Husker Games were not an isolated failure but the culmination of 2 decades of mismanagement by coaches, athletic directors, and university leaders. Successive administrations have made questionable decisions, from coaching hires to strategic priorities, that have eroded Nebraska's once dominant position in college football. Rhule's tenure, marked by this debacle, represents the latest and most damning chapter in this decline. His decision to cancel the spring game, only to reinstate a poorly promoted scrimmage, reflects a leadership style that is reactive, indecisive, and disconnected from the fanbase. The athletic department's complicity in this fiasco, from its failure to communicate changes to its endorsement of the Husker Games' flawed format, underscores a broader institutional failure. The university, tasked with stewarding Nebraska's football legacy, has allowed this erosion to continue unchecked, prioritizing short-term caution over long-term vision. The impact of the Husker Games extends beyond the university, threatening football across the state. Nebraska's high school and small college programs rely on the Huskers' success to inspire young athletes and maintain the state's football culture. By undermining this foundation, the university risks diminishing the sport's vitality at all levels. The Husker Games were a public display of ineptitude, a signal to aspiring players and fans that Nebraska football is no longer a source of pride but a source of embarrassment. Conclusion: an irreversible decline. The Husker Games of April 26, 2025, will be remembered as the day Nebraska football's decline became irreversible. The event's conceptual flaws, from the cancellation of the spring game to the ill-fated embrace of skills contests, were compounded by an execution so chaotic it defied comprehension. The failure to promote a live scrimmage, the cancellation of promised 7-on-7 drills, and the embarrassing skills competitions alienated a fanbase that once filled Memorial Stadium with 60,000 voices. The recruiting fallout ensures that Nebraska will struggle to attract the talent needed to compete, while the program's reputation lies in ruins. Matt Rhule, the athletic department, and university leadership bear responsibility for this catastrophe, a culmination of 2 decades of poor decisions that have brought a once proud program to its knees. Nebraska football, as it was known, is dead, and the Husker Games were its funeral, a disorganized, humiliating spectacle that no fan, player, or recruit will soon forget. The worst is yet to come, and the road to recovery, if it exists, is impossibly steep.